Dara, thank you so much for joining me today. Congratulations on Ironheart. I saw 3 episodes last night. Man, I gotta tell you, it's a tough. Riri Williams as a character has a tough job, especially because it's a following a character like Iron Man. But her personal story, her struggles, and I empathize with it so much, so I enjoyed it. Tell me how much have you enjoyed the series so far? Oh, you composed the whole
I've
thing.
seen it all.
How much did you enjoy working on the series?
Oh, it was one of the joys of my life. I had just such a great time, working with the character, being able to stretch a lot of different musical muscles, and working with just like a fantastic team of people that I hope to bring with me in my heart forever.
Now, this feels like a tall task, just being the fact that it is the character that we've seen before. We saw her in Wakanda Forever. I mean, it's following a Marvel model that we've seen for years. Where was your initial approach for making the music for this?
Yeah, so I mean, we really did want to give her her own kind of sonic textures and musical thumbprints separate from, the world of Wakanda, separate from where she was where she's in she was in Juice and Wakanda Forever, the Ironheart follows her story and her element. Yeah, I mean a lot of the task was creating a kind of large epic landscape, but also combining it with kind of the tech synths and percussive things and things that person and kind of really speak to her as a character.
And was there any influences from any of the other series maybe that you put into it, or where did you draw your inspiration for her?
Yeah, I mean, for her, again, even though they are different sets of instruments, one thing that I did use a lot in this show was the use of bucket drums, which kind of speaks to the Chicago landscape of it all. Um, and, in Wakanda Forever, there are a lot of kind of African and tribal drums and talking drums and things like that. And in this show, I still wanted to have that kind of percussive heartbeat, but change it so it related more to her specifically.
You also have the challenge really of kind of um the urban meets the mystic meets the tech. And I mean, there's just so many different elements going on. How did you take on that challenge?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's finding things to speak to all of those things, and really, what does each moment require? I think, especially at least in the batch of episodes that are out now, in episode two, there are moments where the orchestra takes over. There are moments where the bucket drums take over. When she's being super crafty. Um, there are moments where, the technology takes over when they're, trying to find this black market dealer and all of those things. So it's really about kind of speaking to each moment and then finding moments like the tunnel heist where you can kind of combine them all.
Okay. Yeah. Can you speak a little bit about your workflow really? Because when talking with composers, I'm very curious as to, how do you put yourself in the zone, the element to really be so creative? Because at the end of the day, what you end up doing is really creating, the seasoning, the soul of every scene. Because without music, really, I mean, it doesn't deliver as hard as it should.
Yeah, I mean, deadlines are a great motivator as always. But no, I mean, again, I was fortunate to have some time before I actually started writing the picture to come up with, thematic ideas and kind of, the textures and instrumentation and things like that would be used. So by the time we did have to kind of roll our sleeves up and get into actually writing the picture, at least a lot of the motifs were presented and signed off on, and like we knew what our tools were. It was just about you know, where to use a table saw and where to use a hammer, you know?
Now, I was reading some of the notes that were given to me, and there's a personal element to the music that you created, which has to do with the voicemail
Mm.
and kind of. really relates to Riri's um, kind of grieving process and her AI that she creates. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Reeve's journey in the show is it's a lot about self-discovery. It's a lot about coming to terms with who she is, who she wants to be, and it's a lot of coming to terms with grief. There's the grief of her father and the grief of her best friend. How well she deals with the latter is made evident. But yeah, I myself lost my father 8 years ago, and it was one of those things like when I got this job, it's like this is a thing I would call and tell him about. So like there was this bittersweetness to it, and so there are moments where she's, thinking about her dad and having these kind of like flashback moments that I kind of wanted to give my own, love letter to my own dad and like kind of be in that moment with her. So I used some elements from and this also kind of speaks to Xavier using elements of Natalie's voicemail in the mixtape that he gives Riri. But I used some elements from the last voicemail I ever got from my dad and I put them through all of these programs to kind of stretch them out and make them granular. So they kind of become this like low rumbly pad that you hear sometimes. There's an episode in or there's a moment in episode 5 where I think it's the most evident. But yeah, it's a little thing. It doesn't distract, but it's just like a thing that I know is there. And yeah, it's just my little nod to Arthur.
And how is that to be able to actually hear it in the final product? I mean,
It,
to
it
your take.
felt it felt very nice to kind of include him, you know? And yeah, because like, everyone else you can call. So it's like this is just a way to have him be part of it.
I mean, that's great. I love that you made it so personal. It just makes it that much sweeter, I guess, in
Yeah.
the grand scheme of things. Any particular
Yeah.
character besides Riri that you were really excited to kind of make music for in the series?
I mean, yeah, there are a few. As far as just like pure fun, I would definitely say Joe's character was very fun to kind of play around with. His is kind of like the quirkiest musically. Um, but it has like the ability to be quirky, has the ability to be kind of sad. And it's got some flexibility in it. Because when he's first introduced in episode 2, it's like, there's some mystery behind it, but there's also kind of a tongue in cheek to their interaction. And then when he gets to like telling the story of his dad, I mean, dad's probably a big part of this in this show. Then there's a way to kind of um tone it down and it's all kind of like in the harp and the piano and it's still personal. And speaking of ties, when we find out who his dad is, and this was actually a suggestion from the proximity team, is if there's a way to kind of sonically tie Ironmonger to him. So I went back to the Iron Man score and found and just kind of listened to some of the tracks and noticed how prevalent like this kind of really low piano thing is
Mhm.
in his scenes. And like melodically or whatever is completely different, but there's like the use of this kind of like low staccato piano is something that I use in Joe's theme and goes like bum bum bum. So it's a lot more mischievous, but it's my little nod to his dad.
You know what's incredible about the work that you do, that you're talking about little details like that, is I believe that it resonates with audiences, but a lot of times they don't know why it does. And
Yeah.
and so I think maybe that memory from all the way back to Iron Man. I mean,
Yeah.
this is the quote unquote Snow White, the one that started it all for everything. And
Yeah.
to add those little nods and then now we're hearing it, I think it's incredible that you're able to do that and to add that familiarity for us. And yet I think it goes above so many people's heads until they're hearing it in a conversation like this.
Yeah. That was fun. I mean, I love a good Easter egg. And Marvel is if there's any place to put Easter eggs, that is the place to put it. So very, very grateful to have the opportunity to play like that.
Yeah, it's really cool. And like I said, only can happen thanks to conversations like this, I think, to really deep dive and discover things like that. Dara, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with me. It means a lot to get to know you and to also get to know some of the behind the scenes and the music that you created because like I said, I feel like it's really the soul of these projects. You can play just music and you know where it's from, and that's because of wonderful people like you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I enjoyed speaking with you.